Now introducing the Minor Wisdom Trio!
Minor Wisdom!
I am still asleep, but I come to you in the darkness of the night. Actually, it's the darkness of the morning, early morning, Saturday as I record this. This week I've got Timothy Doyle, Tim Othy. That's how they said it in that Key Appeal thing. I think it was Tim Othy. But I've got Tim Doyle on, and although I'm not going to sound like it at all in this intro, I was very excited to have him on. I don't sound excited right now because I'm very, very tired, which I should not complain about because it is UIL season, and I'm sure there are much more tired folk listening to this, but I can explain. I was contest manager for a contest just a couple hours ago in Dallas ISD, and because my sister decided to schedule my niece's birthday party at 9 a.m. this Saturday morning, I had to be home for that. So the contest concluded around 9-ish, a little after 9, and so I drove home. And here I am. You know, it's not that long of a drive, especially because I live in North Houston. It's not the absolute worst, and I tell myself as a wrestling fan, these wrestlers would end shows at like 10, 11 o'clock at night and then drive 4 or 5 hours to the next town back in the day, and some of them still do that. So I'm just living the dream of being a wrestler. That's right, I'm living that wrestler lifestyle. And so here I am, but I'm tired now. So I'm going to record this for you guys again for Tim Doyle, the man, which is funny because I was just up in his hood. He's not in Dallas ISD. He's not in Dallas ISD, but he is in the area, and he'll tell his story. But this was a fun chat. I didn't really know Tim at all, and like he's one of the few people that I've interviewed that I just knew absolutely nothing about, and that might come across in the interview because I don't have a research team, although I could look some basic information up, but I just don't. It's more fun that way. It's more, as you'll hear him, he didn't, I cut this out of the intro, but he does talk about, he told me that, theater teachers are probably fine talking about themselves, and that's not always the case, but once you get a theater teacher rolling, it's like a little snowball. Just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they talk more and more and more. So anyway, this contest in Dallas ISD was, I'm not going to lie, the leading up to the contest sucked. Dallas ISD needs to get their paperwork stuff in check. And it was frustrating for me and some of my adjudicators, and it was just a pain. It took months to get I had to get a badge, even though not one administrator or, I went straight to the theater and nobody saw the badge. I wore it, but nobody needed to see it. But apparently if you're on a campus just once, and you're getting paid to be there, you have to have like an actual, like it had my face on it. It wasn't one of those Raptor things. It was a plastic, not biodegradable piece of trash that I had to pay for too to get. So that said, if you can get past that hurdle, Dallas ISD ain't too bad, ain't too shabby. I was frustrated. I was annoyed with that process. But as I told Brandon T. Harina, or as I know him as T, as I told him yesterday, man, it was so much fun. The contest I had such a good time. We started the day with a 7 a.m. rehearsed on the hour, almost exactly on the hour, and I kept it a pretty tight ship going. We were late by just a couple minutes, and then we went to go start our director's meeting, and I noticed, hey girl, and I said to Brandon, hey girl, hey, why do we only have 2 adjudicators? And because we were in a bunker of a school, as most of you probably have as well, intentionally, so that students, it's kind of, I think it's intentional. The whole schools are bunkers so that you can't communicate with the outside world, and they can't communicate with you. Maybe to put a pish posh on the students, or a kibosh, if you will. But anyways, so the third adjudicator had tire problems. And what's funny is I presented that to the directors. I said, she's having a tire problem. And one of the directors thought I was talking about her having issues with her outfit. And that's why she wasn't there. But no, it was one tire problem. And so we got that resolved, but it made us start 45 minutes late, which I was not happy about because I could have been 45 minutes more of sleepy time. But the contest ran really well. For being 45 minutes late, we didn't make up a lot of time, but nothing ran behind from that point on. And so the kids were awesome. There's an all-girls school that presented Night Witches, which was just phenomenal. I just thought that they did such a great job as tech and acting and all that good stuff. And it was a fun play actually, but they did really well. They were alternate, but the schools that I thought were going to advance in my head, if I were an adjudicator, which I'm not and I never will be, they advanced. It wasn't necessarily clear, but there was a clear difference between shows that were speaking at you and and speaking to you. I think that there's a difference. It's kind of like teaching. You don't want to be taught at, you want to be taught to. And so it was clear. I will say there was a production of All My Sons, and I'm not a huge Arthur Miller fan. I like Death of a Salesman. It's okay. It's more about me liking Dustin Hoffman than liking Death of a Salesman. But this particular production of All My Sons, I was watching and paying attention the entire time, and I'll tell you why. It sounded different than all the other shows. I think some of us as directors do our students a disservice, and mind you, maybe we're telling them to not do this, but there's a difference between projection and yelling, right? So this particular All My Sons was there was yelling in it. I mean, there's anger in it, but as far as the regular, I would say 35 minutes of it, it was projecting. And it sounded different. There was movement to the vocals. You could have closed your eyes and you would have understood the story and known who each character was, specifically their traits and things like that. And I just thought it was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And that wasn't to say that's not the case for every show that I see at One Act Play, because most adjudicators say we want to see a story, we want to see a relationship, and we want to be able to hear diction, right? And then we tell our students, hey, make sure you're heard. And then they go out on stage and just yell. And that happens a lot. So, if you take anything away from this, tell your students to, I don't know, show some variation and project. Don't yell. It's different. Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's all I got for you. Happy spring break to a lot of you. I hope you have a good time. I'm going to go see Cowboy Bob this week at the Alley Theater. Got horrible reviews, but my best friend in the whole wide world is in it. She is probably my bestest good friend of all the good friends. Maybe one of a few, but anyway, Julia's in it, and I'm excited to see it because I'm always excited to watch her perform. She's just a beautiful performer. And so that's about the extent of my plans. And now I'm gonna go off and go to a 8-year-old's birthday party from at 9 o'clock in the morning. Who does that? My sister. That's who does that. Enjoy this week with Tim Doyle. Do me a Flava Flav. If you got through this long intro, go and click in the little description and purchase a Minor Wisdom shirt. Help me out. This ain't free. Free. Sam Malone style. Free. 90s kids from Houston understand that reference. Have a great week, everybody. Have a wonderful spring break. Holla back, girl.
I was really lucky. I grew up in a family of artistic people. None of them were really, I guess, art. I'm the oldest of three siblings, and so My parents were. My mom was young when I was born, and my father, was a um, kind of jack of all trades, master of none. He had a real engineering mind and a science. He had a sciencey kind of job, but he loved tinkering around on the piano we had in the house. He liked trying new things. He wrote poetry. Um, has a clarinet that he would, dust off and play occasionally poorly. But he liked to write. He liked to be creative, and so that I think that kind of helped fuel whatever creativity would happen around in the house. They always supported as I got older through school. Um, they always supported my, I guess, artistic endeavors. But in sixth grade, I joined the band. I'll go back even further. At the age of 8, I started playing piano. I was taking piano lessons, and so it was important that we had a piano around the house and that we listened to music all the time. And then in the sixth grade, they thought, okay, let's put him in band, and I was terrible at the clarinet. I played the clarinet because my dad owned one. He was kind of cheap, so it did not go well. I was always sneaking into the practice rooms and playing piano. I was pretty good at piano, but I was not good at clarinet. So in the seventh grade, dropped out of band and did some theater, and it was okay. And we kind of the seventh grade theater classes. It's just kind of a free for all. And then in the eighth grade, I ended up switching schools. I went to a different middle school, and it was in Garland ISD, just east of Dallas. And so really big district, not a lot of attention. But because I was a new student, I think the theater teacher there, whose name was Mr. Taylor, still remember that. I think at the time he was like, "Ooh, somebody new," and somebody who can read really well, and somebody who kind of has a normal presence on stage. And so we did this play called "What's Happening, Hamlet," which was like a really small, short, junior, accessible version of Hamlet. So it was all the story, but it was told in like, "Yo, man, what's the haps?" kind of dialogue. And I got to play Hamlet, and I thought that was pretty cool. So it forced me to memorize some legit Shakespeare. I mean, there was the "Hey, man, what's happening?" dialogue, but then it would get sprinkled in with Shakespeare's actual text. So the "to be or not to be" speech was something that I memorized in the eighth grade, and that for me was just really cool to be able to have that kind of experience on stage. I think that's probably where I identify getting I had done some small children's show things like that in the third grade, like everybody does. You play the third pig in the barn yard play or whatever. But this was something where I felt like I was taking real accountability over my own role and getting direction from somebody who was older and more experienced, and working with other kids my age, and memorizing and performing. What I knew to be um, some pretty rich literature. So um, it felt legitimate more than anything else I'd ever done, and I was like, "This is pretty cool." And so all through high school, I participated in theater and UIL one act play, and ended up going to college for it, and it just kind of took off.
That's cool. So where did you go to college?
Yeah. I went to Midwestern State University
Okay.
for my undergrad in Wichita Falls. It was far enough away to be away
Right.
from home, but close enough to kind of do my laundry every
Right.
other weekend or whatever, at home. So, but it was a really small university. It was very affordable for my parents, and um, it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it, even though it was small. So I got a lot of attention. I got a lot of parts, roles,
Mhm.
um, and but it was also I felt uh, it was one of those programs because it was so small. Everybody kind of had to do everything.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of exposure on the technical side, and that's kind of where my love for technical theater started. I really didn't have any desire or understanding of how difficult and how crucial tech theater was to the process until college. But yeah,
How'd you get into the world of education?
uh, all my other options were done. I'm
So,
just kidding. I'm just
well, what
I,
did you? I mean, what were you doing out of college? Were you? I mean, a working professional, that kind of thing, and then you went into
Right.
education.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks. Yeah. So I was at Midwestern 4 years from 2000 to 2004. So just knocked it out the way kind of you're supposed to do it. Um, no pre-existing high school credits or anything. Just like full load semesters every semester, and it was full of acting classes and history and tech classes, as I mentioned, and then opportunities to be in shows. Um, and when there was really no education aspect to my degree. It was a Bachelor of Fine Arts in theater. I had no minor, so my focus was theater. My intention was to either go to grad school to get an MFA or to go pursue acting professionally after college. Um, Boy, the end of college comes really quick. So all of a sudden, I'm 21 and a half, and I'm going, wait a second, what am I doing after this? And fortunately, I had some good friends who were older than me who had gone to grad school or who had gotten jobs outside of college. And so I was in contact with them in my senior year, and they were really uh, helpful and mentor. In fact, a good friend of mine, Brandon Smith, who is now Dr. Brandon Smith, and he's the dean of some arts school at the University of North Carolina. But he was 2 years older than me, and he ended up going to UNC for his MFA, and was calling me and telling me, "Hey man, you got to apply. You got to come up here. It's going to be fun. We'll do it like we did in Texas." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't even have the money to like apply for this program. Like I'm so broke. I don't know what I'm doing." And he sent me a check for $60, which is what the application fee was at the time, so that I could apply to UNC. And so I had a really great support system. I did end up applying to 5 or 6 different master's programs. I didn't get into any of them. Um, and so when I graduated, I came home. I didn't know quite what else to do. And my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, Jenny, she was thinking about moving to Austin with her sister because she wanted to finish her degree at Texas State in San Marcos. And I said, "Well, hell, I'll just come down with you, you know." And we had lived together in Wichita Falls. We've been dating for a while, and I was like, "Let me just come down there with you and see what's what." And so got some acting jobs in Austin and was doing this and that. And after about 5, we ended up getting married down there. We had a really cool like time down in Austin for about 6 years. But now I'm in my late 20s, and we were getting kind of edged out of the housing market. We were looking to buy a house and couldn't afford anything down there because that was the time it was starting to kind of really increase in value. And so we wanted to kind of move back up home. And I think moving up back here was what spurred I was like, okay, I got to make some money. Like, I got to use my degree and actually make some money. And so um, I ended up substituting in Garland ISD, where I'd gone to school, and met my old piano teacher who was teaching at the school I was subbing at. Kind of coincidentally met her, and she said, "Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. How are you doing? So you finished college?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Did you major in music?" Because she was my piano teacher. I said, "No, actually, I majored in theater." And she looked for a little bit funny, and then she said, "Are you looking for a job?" And it turned out that the school had a tech theater position that was opening next year. The current teacher wasn't coming back. And I said, "Yeah, I'd love a job." And I had been working on my teacher certification, my alt cert, and met the performance theater teacher there, and we hit it off. And the next year, I got hired. So it was I kind of backed my way into it, kicking and screaming a little bit. But if it weren't for the relationships I developed earlier in my life, through piano and just through the Garland ISD community, I would not have had that support.
Yeah.
So that was a long-winded way to tell you how education happened. But
No, that's
um,
it's an audio podcast, so you have to talk.
yeah. I think it's different for me. It's funny, like, I remember that first year of teaching too. And of course, nobody knows what they're doing their first year of
Right.
teaching. I don't care if you have an education degree or whatever, it's different, right? When you're in the world of it. And I had 2 really good friends of mine it was also their first year of teaching, who started the same year I did. One was a percussion teacher in the band, and one was a dance teacher. And so we were kind of buds, and the dance teacher was my age. The percussion teacher was 22, straight out of college. And so we used to tease him all the time because we were like, "Oh, you're such a baby. You don't know anything." But really, we all knew the same
Yeah.
amount. We were
Yeah.
just so much older. And so it's funny now that having been a teacher for many years after that, it was just funny how much I had felt like I had to catch up,
Right.
with my trajectory because I was just so far behind. Once I realized, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing for my life.
Right. What year did you start in Garland?
2010 was
Okay.
my first year.
So we
Yeah,
just missed. Yeah, we just
2010, 2011.
my first year teaching was 7 to 8, and it was at Rowlett with Brandon. So,
Oh, is that right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So,
I think I remembered that. I think so.
yeah.
I graduated from Rowlett in 2000.
Okay.
I was the first class to. I was in the first class that got to go all the way through. The school opened in '96, and
Yeah.
that was my freshman year. So that was kind of cool. But coming back to teach in Garland 10 years after graduating,
Yeah.
from that district was um, felt a little bit like failing at the time. I was like, "Oh, here I am back in,
Yeah.
it's that great Steely Dan song, My Old School. Like, I'm never going back to my old school." And here I was in the same district, at least, down the street, and kind of hanging my head. But the longer I was there, the more I realized this is great. It's like
Yeah.
family. It's like being back home. And Brandon wasn't teaching at Rowlett when I was at school there. I
Right.
mean, we're like the
Right.
same age, but he was a great he is a great friend and a great uh, cohort,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a good place to start teaching for me,
So
for
was
sure.
Dr. Hammerly your principal? Yeah.
That's right. She was Dr. Carter
Yeah.
when I was
Right.
there, and yeah, she was great, and I've kept in touch with her over the
Yeah.
years, and then I've never really got to know Steve, her husband,
Right.
but I ended up working at Saxy many years later for a
Right.
couple of years, and so um, the legend of Steve
Right.
Hammerly, and
Yeah.
I knew him through Marlene too. So
Yeah, she spoiled me into thinking that every administration was like hers,
uh,
and that
she's
was,
incredible.
yeah,
I
she
know.
was very, very good at her job, and her team was very good, and very much enjoyed my time at Rowlett, but I just moved back because wanted to be closer to home in Houston. So I stole my wife out of Mesquite and brought her down here. So
That's
uh,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, and Doug Miller too at Rowlett
yeah,
was a really good, who was assistant principal there for
yeah,
many years. He was a great um, advisor and
right,
mentor and support person for me getting my start
right.
teaching. He was terrific.
He had 90s sitcom dad vibes
Oh
when
my
I yeah.
gosh, it's that's you nailed it. That's exactly right.
So that's
Yeah, and he just the nicest man. Like
yeah,
nothing ruffled his feathers. I
right.
mean, he was an exemplar human being.
Yeah,
He was,
he
or
was
he is. I don't know.
yeah,
I'm saying like he's past tense,
yeah.
but
He was
he is
TV
great.
Bob Saget, not necessarily outside of TV Bob Saget. So
Not yeah,
yeah.
not Comedy Central roast Bob
Right,
Saget,
right,
but
right,
yeah,
right, right.
yeah.
Different guy. Although that would have still been kind of entertaining for teachers, but not,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I wasn't in those meetings. I wasn't in those conferences,
Right,
unfortunately.
right. Well, that's so do you fancy yourself? I mean, well, I guess say you fancy yourself, but if you were at Saxy with Libby, that means she was probably not doing a lot of tech. No offense to her, but it's not necessarily her strong suit. So,
Right.
do you fancy yourself more of a like your father, the jack of all trades, master of none, or do you lean more, one side or the other as far as acting, tech, whatever?
Yeah, I've grown to like the term hybrid. I think that's what we call it for our students, so that they have a kind of a better grasp over the idea of not just appreciating the acting side and the technical side, but really having um, a solid set of skills in both. Having had experience on stage, having had experience backstage, I think it's just so crucial um, that both of those are paid attention, and with the understanding that you're not going to be like, if you don't like one side of that, it's okay. You know what I mean? As long as you've given it a shot and developed a little bit of an appreciation of it, I think that just makes you a better actor if you're going that way, or a better technician if you're going the other way.
Yeah,
Um, for myself, yeah, I consider myself. So I tell my students I consider myself a hybrid. But in reality, yeah, I think a jack of all trades is even better, because on the acting side you can break it down to so many different sorts of categories, and on the technical side certainly you can break it down into a lot of different disciplines and categories as well. And you mentioned Libby not doing a whole lot of tech. I'll tell you, Libby and Joe Murdoch and myself were all there at the same time, and if costumes were needed, Joe and I weren't
Oh yeah,
behind
yeah,
the
yeah.
sewing machine. So when you say not doing a lot of tech, she did her share. I mean, she did the stuff
I,
that we couldn't,
I'm
and
giving her a hard
and
time
I know
because
I'm
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm not getting on you about that. I'm just that's the it's funny though, because that's the perception I think that not just students but teachers have when they enter the field. They're like, well, I'm not a good technician. And sometimes I want to go bullshit. Well, can we cuss on this? I'm sorry.
You can. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're fine.
Just
Yeah.
I'll try to.
No, you're good. You're good.
But I sometimes sorry, sometimes I have to get my administrator voice
Yeah,
on and
yeah.
like properly. But no, but to that I'm like, that's bullshit. Like if you're a um
Don't
if
pigeonhole
you're a
yourself.
cost
Yeah.
if you're a costumer, yeah, then by God, yeah, you're a technician. You don't have to be swinging a hammer. And so I don't know why I was saying all that, but yeah, I like to do both, and that again that stemmed from when I was in college. I had it was a good opportunity to after my freshman year, I moved out of the dorms and into an apartment, so I really started needing to make some money to afford the rent, and so I need to find a job. But there was really not jobs. The job market in Wichita Falls isn't like the most booming, place. It's a little bit. It's kind of a small town, and my theater schedule, my rehearsal schedule, wasn't really going to allow me to be very flexible with my hours, with class in the morning and rehearsal at night. And as I mentioned, I was in a lot of the plays, not necessarily because I was any good, but because there was just nobody in this program. So I ended up working as a student assistant in the scene shop. And from I did that starting my sophomore year and did it till the day I graduated. And it was part time. It was 20 hours a week. It was minimum wage. I mean, it was really small stuff, but it was kind of a secondary education to the classes I was taking in the morning. So I'd be in class from 9 to noon. I'd work from 1 to 5, and I'd have rehearsal from 6 to 11 or whatever. So I was living in that theater building. Um, and it was such a great education, and it turned me on to scenic construction and design, to painting, to lighting and sound. And it was only after um, my first year of teaching that I had to kind of remind myself all the stuff that I learned about that in college. And lighting obviously had it like advanced a bit since then. So a lot of what I ended up using my degree and using my job that I had in college to help supplement my technical knowledge as a teacher. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. We just, we had T-Tech in January, and one of the things we added this year was that we want the teachers to learn what the students are doing for Tech Theater Relay, right? And so
Hmm.
as we're signing teachers up, and I'm sitting in the boardroom just waiting to put out fires pretty much and helping people out. But as people are showing up to register and check in, I'm hearing teachers say, I don't want to sign up for Tech Relay. I'm not really a tech teacher. And we finally stepped in, a couple of us, on some of the people we knew better. It wasn't necessarily strangers because we didn't want to make them feel a certain way, but some of the people that said that, we said, hey, that's the point. The point is for you to go, and you're not going to become a tech teacher just because we have you try to hang a light within 90 seconds. That's not what this is about. It's about, you being able to take away the skills that we're asking your students to do in a very inauthentic situation. We're never going to tell a student, go up to this catwalk and hang a light as fast as you can. you know, we're never going to do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So it's that competitive thing, and so we were able to convince some teachers to be like, okay, all right, fine, but it goes along with that whole pigeonholing yourself. It's a long explanation to say, yes, I was kind of busting Libby's balls a little bit because I love Libby, and I know she'll probably listen to this
She's
and
the best.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But there are those teachers that think, I'm not X, Y, and Z. I don't do that kind of stuff. It's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
Well, there's something called professional development, and
yeah.
we can we can learn. And it's just so funny to me. Thank you for saying that to those teachers, and thank you for saying that now, because yeah, isn't it funny how teachers can sometimes make not great students? And I would just, encourage those teachers that are listening who might have heard themselves say that once or twice. What would you tell your student if they said, "Oh, I'm not going to be any good at that," or "I'm not going to know how to do that"? I mean, that's the point of school is to learn those
Yep.
things and to be exposed to those kinds of things. So, yeah, I encourage teachers just as much as I encourage students to become quote unquote hybrids
Yep.
and lovers of every aspect of theater if they can.
So the tech tip of the week, just the tip of the week for tech tip of the week is we're currently doing the show The Count of Monte Cristo. Thank you, H. Russ Brown, for coming in and doing fight choreo. But we're doing The Count of Monte Cristo, and the entire set is stud walls. We're building a ton of stud walls, or we built a ton of stud walls, probably 15 full stud walls, 8 feet by 8 feet, maybe a little less, but pretty close. So if you're ever thinking about doing a 2-story set, don't leg up platforms. Build stud walls. It's a little more expensive, but for storage sake and for future use, they're going to be used for tons of stuff. If you want more lessons on stud walls, just ask this stud wall. Yeah. Yeah. When were you kind of, because I'll speak for myself first, so I don't make it sound like you're the one being attacked, but like, I had no plans of being an educator, and you and I are the same age. I graduated high school in 2000. Um, and I took my sweet time getting out of college, but it took a few years more than others. But I had no plans of being a teacher and wanted to own my own theater and do all this kind of stuff. And those are still things I could do. We're not old
Yeah,
people by any
right.
means, right? But
Sure.
I finally became okay with teaching, right? I finally um, could I live my life if tomorrow teaching was taken away from me? Could I continue to be happy and successful? Absolutely. But would I miss it? Yes. But I'm not one of these people that bleeds education and I have to do this and I have to do that in the world of education, right? Saying the guy that is about to complete a second master's. But
Good for
it's one
you.
of those, yeah, it's one of those things though that eventually I became okay with teaching, and I was, and I, because I felt like, okay, I'm not actually that bad at this stuff, and the relationship element and getting to know these kids and making a difference in their lives. When do you have kind of that moment when that happened to you, when you realized, what, this ain't too bad after all?
Wow. Yeah, that's a good question and a really good way to put it. Congratulations, by the way, on your
Oh, thanks.
master's.
Yeah, we'll see if it ends.
Um, yeah, it's no, I'm sure that's tough. Yeah, I think the way you put it is I'm getting the sense that we're really like-minded because I felt the same way, and as someone who took a little bit of time before getting this kind of job or entering this career, sure, yeah, I don't know that there's a moment that I have ever said, I'm a teacher till the day I die. This is what I was meant to do. I'm 100% doing it. But like you said, I've always been okay with it. And forgot. Well, I haven't been teaching this year. I'm in an administrative role now, and so having had this year away, and like outside of the classroom, um, has been a test of that to see if, oh God, am I going to be one of those that goes into administration and then goes back to teaching because they missed it too much, or am I going to keep going, or what's going to happen after? I still don't know. But to answer your question, I think I had those moments a lot. I think there were there were a lot of times where I thought, yeah, this is pretty cool. Like um, I'm really making an impact. I'm really making a difference. Or I'm really feeling fulfilled. Or um, and just to highlight a couple of those moments, I think going to state for one act play was one of those. Not because of the prestige of state, which is prestigious and very difficult to do. I think it's because of where we were at the time. I was in a school that had never gone to state in its 40-year history, in a program that was never looked at as a strong theater program, and it was my fourth year with that program, so I really felt like I had some. It was there. There was a part of our success that really had to do with my presence there. And because all of those freshmen I started with are now seniors, and now we're going to state. So it was felt like not just that the journey of that spring or of that year, but of that career at that school. It really felt like a culmination of that. So when we got there, I felt like, yeah, I've made a difference here. Like this is pretty cool, and this is something I could do. Um, I think getting my master's in education helped. I think that kind of, and like it helped me take a 30,000-foot view over the whole machine, and that was pretty enlightening. And I thought, okay, this is not just a job anymore. This is becoming a career. And then I also think starting to work at Saxy, uh, only because of the circumstances that brought me there, um, which I can get into in detail if you want, or if you don't know them. But I'll just say quickly that the circumstances were I was at Lovejoy with Jessica Brewster as the tech director there for a couple of years, and being at Lovejoy, I thought I'm going to end my teaching career here. I'm just here. This is heaven. Like I've never had a better. I had some great teaching experiences, but being there with that community and that teaching partner and that legacy and that program, for me at where I was in my career, I thought it's never going to get better than this. And then they had some reduction in force, and the position was eliminated. And they loved me and they loved everything I was doing, but I just wasn't going to have a teaching job there the next year in the high school. And so I had to pick up the phone and start calling friends and looking around, and you know Joe, talking to Joe, and I've been friends with Libby. I've been friends with Libby for nearly 20 years. I mean, she's a very dear friend of mine, and um, we had not even it just so it was happy accident that we started working together. Joe Murdoch called me and said, "You need to come and apply." And he told me later that he wanted me to come there to specifically help them with musical theater, which is something I have in my background, and with UIL one act play success is something that they had struggled with a little bit. And to have that feeling of like being called to somewhere to serve a very specific need that we have in our program, um, I thought was so cool. I was like, wow, that's a really thoughtful. Like, I'm not just like, hey, you're my buddy, come on and we'll hire you. You poor schlub, let's get you off the street and come in here. It was a very intentional hire. It was like we have these gaps. Tim meets these needs. Let's bring him in, and we can be a complete package. And I don't know. There was something in that I just thought this is cool. Like this is a really cool field that I've found that I'm in. And by that point, I'd been teaching for 8 or 9 years, so I felt pretty comfortable, and I'd moved around, so I felt like I could come into a new program and just make it an immediate impact. And I think I did. I think we did make some strides, and I know there's some practices that are still going on that I brought over there. So yeah, it's been a fun ride so
Yeah.
far for sure.
Is your master's in administration?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a master's, and let's see if I can remember the title of it. Educational leadership, I
Okay.
think
Okay.
is the title.
Where'd
So
you
yeah,
get that?
SMU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from Southern Methodist. And that was fortunate for me too. My wife had finished her undergrad and is an academic advisor, so she was in education as well in higher ed, and she was working at UTD and ended up going to SMU to work as an academic advisor there. And as an employee of SMU, your tuition's free; it's
Oh,
taken care of. So she started to pursue her master's there. And after about her first year of doing that, we discovered, or I mean, I guess we discovered this earlier, but spouses of employees get a third
oh,
tuition. So it made SMU just as affordable as everywhere else
right,
when you knock it down by two-thirds.
right,
Um, and so I did an accelerated program. It's called the Accelerated School Leadership Program,
right,
and I was the seventh year to do it. It's an 11-month or 13-month program. It's extremely accelerated. It's really intense. Um, but it was, a really hefty credit card payment and a year of my time, and then it was over.
right.
So I figured, that empowered me to tell myself if I can do anything I can do anything in 13 months if I can do that.
Yeah.
Um, and that became kind of the mantra afterwards.
Cool. Yeah, I'm in a truncated program as well. So,
Oh yeah, then
same,
I mean
yeah,
it's intense.
yeah, yeah. It does.
Is yours in education?
So my first one was that was through Angelo State, and that was a normal time frame, a 2 year
Yeah.
time frame, and this one is Master of Arts from Commerce from A&M Commerce.
Oh,
So
great. Okay.
the commerce thing, I have my opinions on it that I won't share here, but what made it sort of intriguing to me was the summers are in person and the fall and the spring are online. So it's kind of a hybrid-ish program,
I see.
not a
Yeah.
not a hybrid in the way that we thought. You go for on a Monday and you're online the rest of the time. It's some classes are online, some classes are in person. So uh,
Mm.
it's I'll be there this summer working the camp, the Lion Theater camp, which is something I'm really looking forward to because
Oh
I'll be
yeah.
in the scene shop just like you were talking about. You kind of did scenery work, but
Yeah.
I'll be
That's a
running. Yeah, I'll be
great camp.
yeah yeah.
That's a
So
tremendous experience. Yeah.
you send people my way, I'll make them build stuff.
I
But
will do.
so
And
uh,
I'm no stranger to A&M Commerce. I'll say officially, I love that school. My wife is actually now pursuing her doctorate from A&M
okay.
Commerce. So yeah, so it's a good school
Yeah,
for
yeah.
some reasons.
No, I genuinely love the school. I have my concerns with a professor that is not actually on the campus. It's not Rebecca. It's not Doctor K. It's not anybody that I can tangibly touch. It's one of the online people, and just not the best experience. But it's just
Yeah,
one professor, and it is not leaving. It's not leaving a sour taste in my mouth for the entire program. I would never tell anybody not to go to that program. I think it's great, but
yeah,
just that one
good,
class is right now. It's very fresh. So
right. Well,
that's
thanks for holding the post-it note up to the screen with the professor's name so that I know. I appreciate that. I'm just kidding for the listener. That's just a joke. That's just a joke. He's
that's
not
good.
doing
Yeah,
it.
I don't use post-it notes. But so some dynamic that I get, and you probably get this too, is there are two dynamics actually. One is I'm a white male with facial hair, and you, fortunately, are still holding on to the hair on your head. Yeah,
Barely.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've got the skin yarmulke, as we call it in Jew world. Um, and so my students think I'm a coach, right? Or the students that don't know you especially think that guy must
Oh
be a
yeah.
coach, right? There's no way he
Yeah.
does the arts. So
Yeah.
there's that sort of stereotype, and then the other one is the students you do have that are in your classroom. Are they ever surprised at the fact that you can do the other thing? Meaning, if you are handling a drill and building scenery or whatever, and then all of a sudden you bust out with a monologue or being able to sing 16 bars or do something, and they're like, wait, Mr. Doyle or Mr. D, I don't know who they call how they call like
Sure.
I didn't realize you could do the other thing. I thought you were only this type of thing. And I guess it goes thematically, it goes with what we were talking about a couple minutes ago with, pigeonholing. But do you ever have
Right.
students that are just like, wait a second, you're able to do that too? Because I get that every once in a while.
Yeah, that's a great point. You were asking, do they call me Mr. Doyle or Mr. D? Sometimes it's Coach Doyle, accidentally, like you were just to your
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
Yeah, they go, "Hey, Coach," I mean
yeah.
Doyle. Yeah, I'm like, okay, that's fine. And Yeah, I think they are sometimes surprised, and I think they're surprised by my design. I don't like to put all my cards out on the table all at once. And the jack of all trades thing being a theme, I think you're going to find it in any conversation with me. I'm somebody who's, I know it's such a hot button catchphrase, especially in like master's programs and higher ed programs and stuff. But being a lifelong learner, is something that I truly identify as, and I don't say it to sound fancy on a resume. I mean, I just love to try new things. I think it's part of the reason I moved around so much in my career, was I left Lakeview to go to McKinney to become the quote unquote head director, and I have whole lots of opinions about that term, um, but to teach a different kind of class than tech theater, I left McKinney to go to Lovejoy um, to work with the likes of Jessica Brewster and to have that kind of opportunity and that kind of demographic of student. I left Lovejoy for the reasons I said, but when I left Saxe to go to Rock Hill and Prosper ISD, it was to open a new program. That was something that I'd been teaching for 10 years and never had the opportunity to do. I thought I I was a freshman at a brand new high school. That what a cool opportunity to go get to teach freshmen at a brand new high school and to teach at a brand new high school to face all the privileges and challenges that come with that. So I'm not winking or being cute when I say I'm a lifelong learner. I think I truly like to do that. So when I all that to say that when some kind of new skill or different skill is exposed to my kids, to my students, and they're surprised, oh my gosh, Mr. Doyle, I didn't know you played piano, or oh, I didn't know you could sing, or I didn't know you could, whatever, like hang upside down an extension ladder while wiring DMX. Um, those are things I like to just parse out in little bits for them and kind of model what it means to be a lifelong learner, model what it means to be a hybrid theater student and be interested in everything you can. Because I'm not, as you aren't in the classroom, I'm not looking to just interact with students who already love theater and going to love theater no matter what. I want to get those kids that are like on the fence about it, or maybe want to put their toe in a little bit and show them just how expansive theater can be, and also for those who know that, look, I'm not into theater, I'm just doing this for a fine arts credit. I love those kids because not because it's an opportunity for me to try to get them and sell them. Theater sells itself. I think once you're in it, you don't have to sell students who aren't interested in it. You don't have to bust out all the crazy skills that you know how to do and all the fun things. Look, you could learn this and you could learn this, and it sells itself. But getting them to understand that whatever they do in life after this experience, something they take away from this is going to apply. And I think that's what makes it so special and why we keep coming back to it over and over and over and over again. Like I'm getting the itch to audition for some things. Like lately, I've been and like, oh my god, I haven't been on a stage forever, but boy, that would be fun to try that
Yeah.
again. So it's like it always just pulls us back in. Because you do develop all these different kinds of skill sets, and when you don't use them, you miss them. You
Right.
want to try to sharpen them up. But I hope that answered that
Yeah,
question.
that no, that
I
is.
that, yeah,
What so now that you're in the administrative world, uh I don't want to focus on the negative. It's not really my style. But is there something, because I have talked about the negative for when I was interning as an AP during my time as at Angelo State. Um, is there something positive that you weren't expecting that surprised you now that you are that they didn't they tell you when you go into teaching your first couple of years, there's so many things that pop up that Harry Wong does not teach you in alternative
yeah.
certification class, right?
Oh man, I've
um,
got that thing right over
yeah.
here.
So
Yeah.
so what is it? Same thing, same kind of idea. What is it about administration that kind of popped up that you were like, oh, that kind of pleasantly surprised rather than, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a positive thing, but I don't want you to focus on, well, I've got this little kid named Joe that just, grinds my
Right,
gears, that I don't want that.
right. I guess I should clarify. So I've been really fortunate. I think I'll answer your question real quick just to say that there definitely are some positives I
Yeah.
have learned being in administration. There are some negatives that I expected and that I did not expect, and there's some positives I expected and did not
Right.
expect. Um, I was really fortunate through 12 years of teaching to have really strong administrators, and even people that I thought were like, ugh, rolling my eyes at my principal or at my AP, or I'm leaving this school because of that person. In hindsight, I look back and I go, okay, they had a strategy, like they had a reason for the things that they were doing, and I can kind of see that now. Um, And yeah, I think as a teacher, the one thing that people tell you all the time is that your first year is your hardest, and after that it gets better. And I think that's true for the most part, but I think that after that, it doesn't necessarily get better. It gets different. You get better, but the things around you that maybe you can or can't control, can any day of teaching theater can be different than the next. Um, that has been what is pleasantly surprising about this role in administration is that it's not unlike teaching. I had a lot of imposter syndrome coming into this role, and but I'm finding that it's just like it's a classroom. It's just a little bit of a bigger classroom with a different dynamic. And so I'm not a building administrator. I'm not a campus administrator. I'm a fine arts coordinator. So I don't really interact with students a whole lot. I mean, I do when I get to go to their events, concerts, and plays and things like that. Um, but my students are now my teachers. And that's not to say that I have a lot that I can teach them, in the same way that I might have a super talented musical theater senior who I'm not going to be able to teach them how to sing any better because they're like worlds better than I am. But maybe I can guide them, and coach them and help put opportunities in front of them to grow them. And I feel like having done that as a teacher, I can use that skill set for adults who are in this. I mean, I'm not going to tell a band director how to direct band, um, but I can put opportunities in front of them to make them successful. I can advocate for them. I can help coach them in the classroom. Whatever they need. Um, so that has been something that I feel like I has helped me get a little bit of confidence in this role, and some training that I didn't know I was getting when I was a teacher that I'm able to bring to it. Um, the other really positive thing that I did expect was getting to interact with these different content areas. As I mentioned before, like my upbringing made me a musician and a fan of music and a fan of visual. My scenic painting training made me a fan of visual art. I won a contest in the 8th grade in my art class. Like I've always been. I'm not bragging. You can put that on my bragging montage at the beginning of
It's
the
still on your
episode if
resume,
you want.
isn't
But
it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I've emailed that to you, by the way, if you have any. No, I'm kidding.
Sure, sure.
So I'm a lover of really of all the fine arts, and so I think my life and my career as a teacher really has been training me to have the role that I have now. So um, I feel uniquely equipped, kind of, to maybe get past some of the headaches that other first year fine arts administration staff have. Um, there's other things like budgets and teacher allocations and uh, building issues and transportation and policies and things that I'm not huge. I'm not a huge fan of, and I have a steep learning curve on, but that'll come with time. I
Right.
mean, just like it did with teaching. I wasn't a master teacher in my first year, so I'm certainly in no rush to become an expert at all these things. I'm just enjoying the journey.
You just held up a sticky note that said, "I actually am an expert at everything." That's weird. Anyway, gotcha.
I, like you, don't have any sticky notes around here. So.
Got you back. So I want to get you out of here on this. You and I are seem to be, like you said a few minutes ago, of similar kind of like-mindedness as far as our path, if you will. Um, if you weren't doing what you do now, uh, what is it that you think you'd be doing or would like to be doing? And I don't want this to be like your superintendent hears this and is like, oh, so apparently you want to be own your own bakery, huh? So why don't you go do it? So anyway, I don't want you to do that.
Yeah, no, that's kind of you. To preface that, I'm not too worried about saying
Yeah,
anything. First of all, my superintendent is awesome.
yeah,
My school district is awesome. I'm really
and
fortunate and
and
blessed to
and
have such a
quick and
great team.
very quickly growing. But anyway, uh,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's just to touch back on that last question
yeah,
too. Another great thing about my role and something that I've been pleasantly surprised with is the um, willingness, of the people that are in this district to say, especially the people who've been around for a while, to say, yeah, we were small, we're no longer
Yeah.
small, and we're going to get even bigger. So, kind of, I wouldn't say the ground floor, but being on like the third floor of
Yeah.
all of that growth, there's still much more to do. Um, it's a really exciting prospect, and it's a cool place to be. So that being said, yeah, I don't know. It's a great question because I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do after college, and then you know bummed around for 6 or 7 years until getting a teaching gig, and I've been in education ever since. And um, so, not to sound like Mr. Holland from Mr. Holland's Opus here, but it's like I think I'm going to get at the end of my career, and I'm going to go, I don't know what else to do. Like this is all I want to do now.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, but I guess something. Um, for a brief time, I played piano in a piano bar,
Yeah.
and I think I'd like to do that. I think I'd like to go to some like a restaurant or a Nordstrom's, where they have the piano or something, and just sit in the corner
Yeah.
and just play what I want to play. Take a request every now and then. Nothing like with a big showy element to it. Not like getting a bachelorette party on stage or anything like that, but just something that's where I can just kind of serve as the background music and create a mood and create an atmosphere, and just I think that would be fun. I think I would like to do that. My wife is the baker. I think if she could open a bakery, she would. And we've often joked about starting our own business, like where she's just baking, and I'm like, "What am I doing?" She's like, "You're playing piano." I'm like, "In a baker? Okay, cool. I guess I'll do that." Uh,
It's a new
so I don't
concept.
know.
All right. Well,
It,
good. Yeah.
it would
Yeah.
be a
Yeah.
different kind of bakery, I guess, but
A bar bakery.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Minor wisdom.